you used the term earlier. Does everyone understand what we mean when we say employee liable? Anybody not? Okay, great. Chris?
I would just add, I think that's what's fun about this chaos, as Alan mentioned earlier. The problems that we're talking about, you said, is security, the new focus or the new norm for the folks. Security in the enterprise has always been there. I've sold software to software to enterprises for over 20 years. Security has always been part of the equation, whether I was selling runbook automation or I was selling network management systems or I was building network management systems. Security has always been at the forefront, so that's not new. What's new is this disruptive platform. What's new is employee-level devices, and that's the disruption that's creating this opportunity and this chaos for a lot of us right now to seize and take hold of.
So we're on the steep part of the learning curve, or the enterprise are on the steep part of the learning curve.
For mobility.
Yeah. Now, another question that Pete was curious about is that it seems like the most dominant apps and most of the apps that we're working on as a community are consumer-based. And I know that even in business, a lot of the apps are consumer-based, and they're trying to get control of them. So Terry, do you want to comment on what the future is? Are consumer apps going to still be in enterprise, or are they going to be displaced by the big brothers or something from Redmond?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. You look at like Evernote, which could be a great enterprise application. And I think they will get there. It's easier to get the consumer side to adopt to some of the technology, and enterprise has always been kind of lagging behind. I think that there's some of the security issues, just like payment. You got the network side, you got the device side. I think some of this, I remember when you were mentioning the security issue, I was remembering. This is probably years ago when Wi-Fi first came out. People were complaining like, okay, I can sit outside Best Buy and I can collect everybody's credit card. Well, now we think of that, we're like, what are you talking about? But those are the kind of the early stage issues that you have to deal with when things first come out. I do believe the consumer's space is a great way to test out the value proposition, because if you have something that's useful, and a lot of people think it's useful, there's probably an enterprise market for it.
Dropbox.
Yeah, Dropbox. Great example.
Dropbox is fantastic.
Box.net,
And I think, at least within the last year, those enterprise plays have, I think the right word has probably been stymied a bit in addressing the enterprise market directly because of that same distribution channel that's made the consumer so successful. Single click, I buy the app, I buy it for $1, I don't have to worry about billing, I get paid at the end of the month, it's great. But with that same level of channel that you get, you also get these restrictions. I can't ship my app to my enterprise customer and have them loaded on all their devices. It's prevented from doing so. But now you're starting to see both Microsoft and Apple change that. You have volume pricing and volume purchasing, and B2B pricing that is going to allow a ISV, and we're talking to a few of them now, to build their enterprise-oriented app, sell directly to the enterprise, never appear on the iTunes store, and have the distribution model sort of revert back, that's what I was saying earlier, revert back to sort of a standard perpetual license distribution model that goes out to employee-liable devices. So those channels are starting to open up in a very familiar pattern that we've seen on the consumer side. And so I think that will burgeon even more the enterprise opportunity that we have.
Okay, question over here?
Yeah, just kind of continuing on the contrast with consumer, for those of you who have been pursuing funding lately, what have you found the level of excitement from investors about enterprise mobility?
I'm getting ready to start my Series A round. I'll tell you in about 3 months. In all seriousness, we've been doing introductory calls and it's been very positive. Of course, as you know, every VC says yes until you ask for a check, and then that's when they'll tell you no. But so far, it's been very positive. They like the enterprise play. They like the focus of it. The question is always around price point. Will you carry over the consumer price point over into the enterprise? And if so, that's not a very interesting business model for the enterprise. Or will it be a separate price point for the enterprise for the services that you offer?
What I could say is I think you'll see different metrics for enterprise apps type companies versus consumers. I've seen on the consumer side, almost regardless of what kind of app it is, it's running, in terms of valuation wise for MMA, it's typically, even for fundraising, it's probably $10 ahead of active app users that you have. Some of you heard of GroupMe, which just got acquired by Skype, which they have, 500,000 installs, which they sold for, whatever, $70 million. So most of it's from, you heard of Color, you heard of Tango. Tango raised $42 million at north of $100 million valuation, and they had just south of 10 million installs. So you're looking at about $10 ahead on the consumer side. I think on the enterprise side, it's going to be different metrics. It's not going to be how many users do you have. Also, what we haven't talked about is sort of the for enterprise. Most services are really moving toward SaaS model, software as a service. So a lot of the mobile app is really just a component to enable SaaS, which some people call it cloud. So I think the mobile app for for enterprise, a lot of times it may be just a component. It's not the whole thing.
So quick poll. Do you operate on a SaaS or perpetual basis?
Both.
Terry?
We're SaaS cloud basis.
Cloud-based.
Well, we do both. Both. Okay, interesting. And do you feel like the prices that you're getting on that SaaS model are surprising customers? Like, I mean, if you go to the App Store, I think the average price, well, other than free, is like 99 cents. Like, I'm sure you don't get 99 cents. Like, do people choke when you name the price?
Not so far. So we've, what we're finding is that, I don't think I talked about this, but we price at a installed agent level. So how many times our agent goes out into your app and how widely does it get distributed. So we're not seeing any kind of pushback on those price points, which tells us maybe we're going in a little low. We'll raise that and see when the pain starts. But it's more the tiering, where your entry point is in the tiering and how to get started. So, and that's not so different than any other SaaS model. You need a way to get in, exercise it, and try to grow with them. So that's what we're seeing.
You want to comment on it?
The way we do it is, one way to think of it is we're Google Voice, but we're B2B. We don't have a direct to consumer, but we give businesses a phone number that are messaging voice enabled, and then they can run whatever logic they want to run. One simple use case would be, you walk into a silent auction. Instead of using pen and paper to write down your bid, we just give that item a phone number and you text your bid to it. At the every time somebody outbids you, it sends you a message to say, this item has been outbid. Reply with your new bid. At the end of the night, the item sends you a message to say, here's how much and where you pick it up. And if you don't, they have your phone number.
Can bill your account.
Yeah.
Why not? Okay, more questions out here?
You think HTML5 and CSS3 are going to just totally kill the enterprise version idea of a native app on the client end? Or do you think that there's really a functionality there for that much more user experience on the client end when it comes to enterprise apps?
I think what he was saying before is that there's going to be a place for both of them as there is today, right? So it depends on the user experience, what's going on, what you're trying to accomplish. What is your demographic and what type of devices are they using? So no, there's not one or other that will win necessarily in that more high-level view of things, I don't think.
Take that one step further. One step further in that, go back to the user experience. In order for HTML5 and CSS to achieve that same level of immersion and use of the accelerometer and the GPS and everything that's on there, in a mostly connected environment, it starts looking a whole lot like a native app. It's just delivered over the web. It still looks like a web clip or an app icon. It happens to be web clip. It just starts behaving a lot more like a native app. And at the end of the day, all we've changed is how do they obtain that. But it's still an app. It's still persistent. It's still local storage. All the same behaviors are there. Same immersions are there. So that doesn't, I don't think it disrupts that market. I think it actually potentially opens it up and sort of uncuffs the developers, or I'm sorry, the ISVs from having to go through Apple to deliver some of these things.
I have an interesting poll question, and you guys are mobile app developers. If you want to develop Google Map today, would you use web app or would you use native app? Any
Natives.
Natives? Web? Okay, so you can see it's 50-50.
Out of all 4 votes.
Let me add one more thing too. I think you've got to look at the economics of this as well, right? Most of these guys, they make money by selling devices, right? And they're setting up an ecosystem around devices. I feel very confident that each of the manufacturers has a vested interest to keep you using a native app to, in essence, keep you, in essence, locked into their platform. And so you're going to see continued innovation. You're going to see continued value that they're going to try and bring to market, right? Because they don't want to get abstracted away, right? And it's useful for developers that I can go write HTML5 and I can go across any platform. Well, that's not that great if you're the platform, right? So think about that too, is that, you know, when you look at the economics, they have a vested interest, and I think they'll support it. But I think their view of it is going to be, yes, I'll support, you know, HTML5, you can run it anywhere, but I've got to work really hard to make sure that I deliver so much value native to my platform that you don't want to, that you want to go do that, right? Because that's where they make their money.
So their new features are gonna be first, and then they'll make it work for HTML5.
I think you just look at the development environments they've delivered, right? Those are pretty impressive development environments to make it easy to develop on their device. They don't make it that easy to develop on other devices, though.
I think the challenge that's